beacon on her skin, lies in the tower. Airports don't sleep. They change the way they breathe. When the last day flights claw the dusk and the terminals empty into a hush of shoe soles and rolling bags, the runways begin speaking in another language. Day as gate changes and stroller collapses, a chorus of apologies and boarding zones. Night is radar sweep and turbine lull, the click of PTT buttons and the warm static of voices you know by breath alone. The field lights up like a jewelry box turned over on velvet. The red beacons beat the same note as a careful heart. If you've never stood in a tower cab at 2 a.m. with a scope humming and all that black glass outside stitched with light, you don't know how a city can turn into a pulse in your hands. My name is Ethan. I'm the night supervisor for Bayview Tower. On my belt, a radio, a master key for doors that pretend to be stubborn, a screwdriver I've had since my first solo, and a laminated card of phraseology even though it's printed on my tongue. In front of me, the bright globe of the radar, the strip bay with its paper confidences, the wind readout that lies only by omission. I can tell from the speed of a ground tug on sea taxiway whether the driver is new. I know from one breath on frequency when a pilot is about to ask for forgiveness instead of permission. I can tell, by how the glass sweats in August, if the building is listening. Mara, my wife, then curated nights that started on time. She made corporate launches feel like declarations and taught champagne to behave. Event producer, lighting whisperer, collector of stolen seconds. She wore a thin white band inside her wrist, silk threaded like a secret where a mouth might find it if it had clearance. On Wednesdays, when our orbit allowed, she'd ping me from the staff lot, ride up in the service elevator, and step into the hush like a swimmer breaking the surface. She'd perch on the back of the console, heel hooked on the footrail, slip 2 fingers in my belt with a pretext about lint. I'd put my mouth in the small notch beneath her collarbone, the place where a voice hums before it speaks, and breathe until her shoulders admitted we were alone. We were careful. The tower's cameras are loyal to their memory, and a headset foam keeps the shape of a kiss longer than it should. But sanctuaries are made out of seconds. We learned how to build them. The first sign didn't raise its voice. At 0123, the event log noted cab door held, 3S with no corresponding badge. At 0124, frequency guard popped once, like a hiccup in a long hallway. At 0127, the tower cab thermostat nudged itself 1 degree warmer when no one touched the dial. At shift change, a headset lay coiled with a neatness that offended me, and the pop filter on Mic B wore the faint ring of lipstick, a red so thin it looked like a fruit sketched with a pencil. Mara favors fig. This was peppermint, glossy, comfortable being seen. 2 nights later, the same minute pressed its thumb into my neck. Held. 4S, ground frequency flared with a whisper, then went clean. On the stair landing, the rubber nose of the handrail carried a dust print, 2 fingers, right hand, at the height of someone bored enough to lean. In the shadows under a console, I found a sequin, no bigger than a freckle, caught in the industrial mat. We have no sequins in our uniform policy. I am not a cop. I am a man of procedures and the physics of flight. But I believe in traces. In the training cabinet, we keep a vial of UV developer for that annual dance where we tell new hires their hands confess even when their mouths don't. That night, I drew invisible crescents under the cab door handle, a sleepy arc beneath Mike B's fader, a soft kiss where you'd place your thumb to brace while you reached for the strip bay. I tore a single thread from a roll of duct tape and stretched it across the service hatch that opens to the tower catwalk, just enough to part like a hair and fall to the grate if disturbed. Then I took a picture of my own face in the dark glass of the cab, stupid ritual, and smiled, because there are nights you decide what kind of man you will be before anyone else does. Mara came later, mouth amber, dress choosing its own folds. She sipped my coffee, made that exacting face that forgave the taste but not the habit, and put her palm on my sternum like she was checking a panel for heat. "Your tower feels like a confession booth with runway lights," she said, looking not at me but at the silhouettes of the approach strobes beating in the mist. "It dreams," I said. "I bridle it with checklists until it falls asleep." My hand found the side of her throat. Hello, not a hold. She softened the way a decision does when you stop forcing it. "We should have it," she said. "The conversation," I answered, because I am the kind of man who names the animal so it stops chewing through the room. "Open," she said. "Not chaotic, not cruel. Rules, no one from your team, no one who pays me. We say it before, not after. We are first. Protection is religion. Our bed is a border. The cab," her eyes glanced around at the glass and the hum, "sanctuary." I said the terrible line about being the sacristan of VHF, and her mouth shut me up with a better language. We signed in skin. We wrote our rules on the underside of our wrists. For a while, they read as easily as a checklist. Morning returned the thread to me like an eaten insect. It curled on the catwalk grate. Under the black light, 3 pale bows glowed on the handle, the fader, the console edge at the exact heights of a human's wants. Under the foot of the radar console, an earbud tip slept in the dust, transparent, the sort that pretends to be invisible and is bought in packs of 6. Mara's hairpins are matte and serious. This was the brightness of a performance. His name floated in through a permissions email with 4 logos and a tone of inevitability. Cal Hart, private jet pilot, content creator, documentary on night flying, requires tower access for ambient pickup and cutaways. He had the handshake of a man accustomed to living inside entries people made for him. He wore sneakers that pronounced creative when they touched the floor. "You can feel the runway lights in your bones up here," he said, trying the sentence on for the camera that would eventually love it. "The building does not forgive performance," I said. "It forgives competence." He smiled in the place where a smile would do him the most good. His eyes measured Mike B, and the rack of spare headsets the way a thief checks which window is least observed. The kettle sang at home. Our table was a sheet of stage deck borrowed for our kitchen and never returned. Mara spread her fingers like a lighting plot. "I used the word," she said. She didn't shrink. "I wasn't supposed to bring that into your walls. I won't again. Not here." "What time?" I asked, the man of logs and radar traces, as if this were a runway I could allocate and the air would cooperate. "It's not the hour that cleans it," she said, and I hated her for being right without giving me a way to use it. We lasted a month like citizens of a fragile country, 2 honest passports, a shared border, smugglers at the edges. She told me before. I put the vial of UV back in the training cabinet with the things that know too much. Cal drifted around our field like a promising weather system, videographer in tow, the word documentary protecting him like a talisman. The tower breathed like a chest unhindered. Thursday is the day the world remembers itself. At 0123, held 5S at 0124, guard pop. At 0127, the thermostat clicked up 1. In the kitchen on level 3, a flute waited in a drying rack with a peppermint ring as fine as a pencil line. On the stair camera, the silhouette paused in a way that photographs call cute and cops call probable cause. I didn't pull the badge history. I didn't call security to play theater. I sat with my hands on the console and worked traffic, and I let my anger stand in the corner with its hands on its head, while I decided whether it was going to get to come home with me. After we separated the humane way because we had practiced the words, Mara took a 1-bedroom near the river. a balcony with a basil plant trying to be an orchard. I kept the mug with the chipped rim, the torso-hugging chair the upholstery guy promised to repair months ago, and my rituals. She took the kind kettle. "Hate me clean," she said. "If you can't, file me in a drawer you label and don't open every day." "I have labels," I said, and I tried to deserve the luxury of having said it. Work stitched me with thread that smelled like ozone and old coffee. A medevac inbound at 2:30 with a pilot who forgot the grammar of asking the sky. I laid out the sentences for him and walked him to the runway like you walk a horse that's seen a snake. A trainee on ground frequency mistook silence for a pause in the music instead of a tempo. I taught her where to breathe. A raccoon the size of poor judgment crossed Bravo and looked at me like I had invented automobiles. I told ops, and they laughed at my description before they did their job. She arrived with the vendor we keep because our insurer says we must, but who earns their keep every time something blinks and shouldn't? Yi was an avionics technician with wrist bones like punctuation, hair in a coil anchored by a silver pen, a jacket that smelled like rain and clean wire. On her left middle finger a pale scar in the shape of a comma, a gift from a rack door. Her toolbox opened like a book every screw wanted to read. At 03:11, in the equipment room below the cab, with the racks humming a catechism, we met where people meet when they're too busy to be clever. She pressed her ear against a cabinet and drummed the back of her fingernail against the metal until a cheap fan decided to admit it was tired. "Respect, not force," she told the cabinet, not me. "Everything worth keeping," I said, angling the flashlight without being asked. Our hands touched when I passed the driver. The electricity went where it should. The first kiss happened in the stairwell between the catwalk and the maintenance level, a ladder's worth of forbidden and a lifetime's worth of right. Yi put her palm on my sternum, precise and steady like a voltage reed. I put my mouth under her ear, in the country where language decides to become breath instead. We stood there while something old in both of us changed its job description. She kept her eyes open. Not defiance. Joy that the world stayed up even as we tilted. My hand found the side of her throat, the place for hello, not proof. We stopped before the courtesy tone on the door remembered what it was for. We laughed like criminals grateful to have miscounted nothing. With Yi, precision wore warmth like it had finally been fitted to size. She likes when my thumb rests on the pulse in her wrist and I refuse the habit of haste. She sits astride my lap in the little glass office off the base of the stair, shade pulled, monitors dimmed, world still happening. With a nail she draws wiring paths on my forearm, radome to cab, cab to rack, camera to nothing we'll ever look at unless the sky demands it. We made rules the building could bless. Not on the console. Not in the cab. Not where the glass can remember. Yes, under the catwalk where the beacons paint the skin in red. Yes, in the electrical room when the racks sing the sea. Yes, on the roof at that hour before dawn when the runway lights look like a lie we've agreed to tell the dark for everyone's sake. If you're expecting vengeance dressed as justice, I will fail you. I could have printed badge logs, highlighted UV arcs, posted the earbuds obituary on an internal memo, sent a blind tip to a blog about a man who wanted the view more than the work. Instead, I put the vial away because a tower is a sanctum for strangers. The night landing out there on final has someone's mother. The medevac has a man whose wife hasn't slept. The freighter carries someone's medicine and someone else's mortgage. I won't use their sanctuary to bless my anger. Also, Yi likes me better when I smell like wire and patience, not triumph. Mara and I learned how to make sentences without teeth. She kept the contract to stage our night at the Tower donor event because she is excellent and I am not small. Sometimes she sends a picture of her basil pretending to be a forest. I send a photo of runway 12 with a thunderhead politely waiting its turn offshore. Proud of you, she wrote one night when a microburst tried to make theater and I made choreography instead. I let the words rest. They had no claws left. Cal still comes now and then, all lens and grin, because the algorithm loves a boy with lights behind him. We passed in the service corridor by the freight elevator. He lifted two fingers like a salute that hadn't learned its manners. "What a view," he said, not looking at it. "It keeps itself," I said. "I keep its memory straight." He smiled the way a man does when he mistakes composure for surrender, and let the door take care of itself. Knights returned to their honest work. A freighter asked to cut the corner on a taxi route because time had already done it for him. I said no kindly and yes to a faster runway crossing later. A student pilot read back the opposite of what I said. I praised his voice and fixed his words. A fox trotted along the edge of the field with purpose and a rabbit in mind. I told nobody, because not everything unapproved is a problem. Once in a while I wake in the break room we pretend is a nap space, at an hour that refuses a name. If Yi's shin is heavy across my thigh like a comma that knows exactly where it belongs, I set my hand to her throat and wait for the lift that says yes. The difference between an ending and a finish has a temperature. My palm knows it better than my tongue could ever explain. Months after the UV went back to its drawer among the useful lies, the airport hosted its lights and flight gala. I wore black because it makes the halogens behave. Mara stood under a tamed rig, hair shorter like a final draft. "Is she gentle?" she asked, not saying Yi, because we have learned how to offer names without throwing them. "She's exact," I said, which is my religion's word for good. Tenderness with a manual. "Be kind," she said, not a blessing, an instruction. We touched glasses of water because water keeps you honest, and the runway lights were already doing enough shining for everyone. Down on the field, a jet lined up for 12 as if our little party were a lighthouse worth noticing. People turned their faces to the glass like flowers. I watched the beacons and the false stars and the real ones. Cal told a circle of donors that runways are the veins of a city. They gave him money for it because men with cameras are given many things. Let him keep their indulgence. I had a door to lock, a log to sign, a woman to take to the roof where we would taste the air and not make a scene of it. Airports don't do morals. They do separation minima and wake turbulence categories, and 1,000 rituals designed to keep strangers from touching in the wrong way. To the anxious junior controller who will slip into my office on some midnight, eyes bright with questions about the parts of the job that are not on the exam, I will say what I say to myself when the building tries to weaponize my pride. Log it, breathe, decide. Keep the sanctuary sacred. Don't let your anger borrow the runway. Keep evidence if you have to, but don't put on the robe. Remember, what moves through your hands is the pause in someone else's story. They will not wait for you to forgive them to keep going. Before dawn, I like my last round the way you like a song that knows your step. I run my palm down the steel of the stair rail the way you stroke an old dog's back. All green, I tell the radio, which is another word for the middle of my chest. The indicators give me their small, honest lights. I kill the noises in the correct order. I turn the key, the whole profession folded into one click, and climb to the roof. Sometimes Yi is already there, hair pierced by her silver pen, smelling like clean coal and the whisper of solder. She sets her palm on my sternum like she's testing a circuit she trusts. I put my mouth in the old place under her ear where language loosens into breath. I keep the only oath I took without paperwork. Sanctuaries are built, not found. Love is a maintenance log. I will not use a tower for revenge. If the access log coughs again at 0123, I will see it. I will choose which drawer to open. The one with the powder or the one where patience sleeps, tidy as a coil of wire? Lately I open, look close, and choose patience. It looks good on the glass. It holds me upright. And when the first departure rotates against a sky turning honest, I go back down with runway on my tongue, Ye's hand in mine, and the certainty that I carried the truth at the right altitude tonight.